Today we stand in Jerusalem, Israel, exploring one of the most revered religious sites in the world, the Temple Mount. According to ancient traditions, the Temple Mount is the mountain where the biblical founding father Abraham brought his son Isaac, intending to sacrifice him until God stopped him. And many years later, in the book of Samuel, King David would purchase the property at the mountain's summit from its Jebusite owner. David's son, King Solomon, then would build the biblical temple on that very spot, which is how the Temple Mount got its name. About 400 years after Solomon, the mighty Babylonian Empire invaded the land of Israel, captured the city of Jerusalem, stormed the Temple Mount, and destroyed Solomon's temple. But even as the temple stood in flames, the prophet Jeremiah predicted that within a mere 70 years, the temple would be rebuilt. This seemed impossible at the time. After all, why would the Babylonians ever permit something like this? But sure enough, within a few decades, the Babylonian Empire had somehow fallen, and the Persian Empire rose in its place. And precisely 70 years after its destruction, the temple had been rebuilt on the Temple Mount. Now fast forward almost 600 years to the 1st century AD, the time of Jesus. The Jewish people in the land of Israel found themselves ruled by the Roman Empire. Eventually, the Jewish people, seeking freedom from their oppression, rebelled against the Romans. And so it was in the year 70 AD, the Romans take revenge against the Jews by destroying the temple, just as the Babylonians had. The Temple Mount was left in ruins until the Muslim conquest in the 7th century. Islamic tradition locates Muhammad's night journey to the site of the Holy Temple, and so Muslims started to revere the site as well. Soon they began to build on top of the Jewish ruins on the Mount. This is the beginning of years of conflict at the site, leading all the way up until today, when the Dome of the Rock, an Islamic shrine, sits upon the spot where the center of Solomon's temple once stood. And right next to the dome, just to the south of the Temple Mount, is the third holiest site in Islam, the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Yeah, I feel as though a lot of people don't truly understand the phenomenon of what the nations are experiencing with the re-establishment of Israel. Here we see that they're still discovering and finding out more and more about this ancient past of this Jewish presence in the land.
There's no place in the world more so than Jerusalem, not for millions, but for billions of people, that people wake up in the morning and look to Jerusalem as a source of meaning, identity, faith, inspiration, purpose, and to be a part of a place like that, to help uncover that place, its heritage, to share that heritage with the world, that's a big privilege, a big responsibility, and it's really exciting.
We're looking at the Kidron Valley.
Yeah.
We've got the Mount of Olives. Directly behind us is the Temple Mount, which is now where the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock is located today. But where we're actually standing is this discovery of the City of David.
That's right.
Now, why is it called the City of David?
So up until 150 years ago, when people think, where is the original biblical city of Jerusalem? Everyone universally believes it's not where we're standing here in the City of David. Everyone believes it's the old city of Jerusalem, surrounded by the iconic old city walls. Until 1867, Queen Victoria of England wants to discover the treasures of the Bible, like the Ark of the Covenant. She sends a man by the name of Captain Charles Warren to the Holy Land to find those treasures. And if you're going to search one place in all the land of Israel to find the treasures of the Bible, you will go to Jerusalem. And if you're going to search one place in Jerusalem, you'll go to Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. So that's what Charles Warren does. In 1867, the Ottomans controlling this area, and they say, Charles, we're sure you're a great guy, but you are not going to dig up the Temple Mount. So today, as you mentioned, you have the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site for Islam. You have the Dome of the Rock. And to this day, due to religious sensitivities, political sensitivities, there's been virtually no archaeological activity on the Temple Mount. So Charles Warren says, if I can't dig on the Temple Mount, I'll do the next best thing, which is to dig near it. He comes down the slopes of the Temple Mount, walks through the Kidron Valley below us over here, and as he walks through the valley, he comes up with a theory. The place where Jerusalem began is not located inside the walls of the Old City, but located just outside the walls of the Old City, where we're standing here in the City of David. This becomes one of the most archaeologically excavated sites in the world, the most excavated site in this country, and today everyone knows that Charles Warren was, in fact, correct. You find weapons, you find coins, you find seals. 2005, all this is underground. Our visitor center is directly above our heads. One morning, a woman by the name of Dr. Eilat Mazar, world-renowned archaeologist, she comes into our offices. She says to us, you need to move your visitor center. We ask her why. She says, beneath your feet, you will find the palace of King David. What do you say to that? So we said, Dr. Mazar, people have been digging here for the last 150 years. No one's ever said that before. So she says, very simply, the city of David is a city on a hill. If you have a city on a hill, where will you find the palace? The top of the hill. She says, this is the top of the city of David. This is where you'll find the palace. We said, Dr. Mazar, with all due respect, you need to come up with more than that if we're going to move our visitor center. And she shows us something found on the slopes that we're standing on right now, a royal Phoenician capital. And she says this royal Phoenician capital that would have stood atop an ancient column or pillar proves that where we're standing is King David's palace. I said, Dr. Mazar, what is a royal Phoenician capital? Phoenicia being modern-day Lebanon. What does that have to do with David and where he built his palace? She said, if you open up to 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 11, King David has conquered Jerusalem. And he turns to his neighbors in the north, the Phoenicians, and it says the following, King Hiram of Tyre sent envoys to David with cedar logs, carpenters, and stonemasons, and they built a palace for David. So Dr. Mazar says, why do we find a royal Phoenician capital here in the city of David? Because it was the Phoenicians who built David's palace. Dr. Mazar is digging here a few years ago. She finds 2 clay seals with names in Hebrew that appear in the Bible. 2 of those officials, Gedaliah son of Pashhur and Juchal son of Shlemiah, their very seals are found here in the city of David, in this excavation where we are standing. The fact that it was found just recently, historically speaking, at a time when the biblical heritage is being denied around the world is a gift. It's almost like this present that was lying for a time when it would matter. We are standing on the 2,000-year-old pilgrimage road. This is what I call the biblical superhighway. This is the road that our ancestors, yours and mine, this is the road they would have walked on when they went on pilgrimage up to the temple atop the Temple Mount.
What does this discovery do for the Jewish story again? How does this shape our understanding of the Jewish presence in the land?
You have in the Arab world, specifically not just the denial of the Jewish connection to the land of Israel, but even more specifically to Jerusalem and to the Temple Mount. This would have been a massive thoroughfare taking millions of people from the pool up to the temple atop the Temple Mount 2,000 years ago. You know, it says in the Psalms, there's 15 chapters from 120 to 134 that all begin with the same words, a song of ascent. You could see we are ascending on this half-mile journey going up the pilgrimage road to the Temple Mount. We are literally walking in the footsteps of our ancestors.
So 2,000 years ago, what does this place look like in your mind?
Well, the pilgrimage road comes up right from here, and it's going to connect right to where we're going. Here you could see there's a little bit of like stone kind of coming out 2/3 of the way up here along the western wall. That's Robinson's Arch. That would have been one of the massive stairways that would have gone up into the temple 2,000 years ago. You have the southern steps in front of us, which is also one of the main gateways into the Temple Mount complex 2,000 years ago. So this is the beating heart of Jerusalem, and in many ways the center of the world 2,000 years ago.
What is the access for Jewish people on the Temple Mount today?
It's very limited. There's a few hours a day where non-Muslims, including Jews, are allowed to access the Temple Mount, even though the Temple Mount itself is as part of Israel under Israeli sovereignty as much as Tel Aviv is, but there's limited access for non-Muslims. But this is a site that has deep significance. It's also a site, there's a lot of conflict and contention around it. And you know, what the aspiration is, it's like it says in the book of Isaiah, that Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, the temple itself should be a house of prayer for all nations. We're not there yet, but that's the aspiration.
And so the re-establishment of Israel specifically is a very, very strong claim that the God of Israel is stronger and in control, and that's why many of the nations are up in roar, because we can't beat him, but we can destroy his people.
That's right.
And if we can remove them from the land, we can prove that he isn't the God that he claimed to be.
It's the idea of replacement theology.
Yes, I hate it.
That the Jewish people, yes, were once upon a time the chosen people, but God rejected them.
Yes.
And what was the proof of that rejection? The exile of the Jewish people, the persecution of the Jewish people, and that was it until 1948. And then 1967, the promises that God made to the Jewish people
Stand.
It took a little bit longer than maybe we would have liked them to take, but they're being fulfilled. They're saying the ultimate battle is Jerusalem. The ultimate battle is the Temple Mount. And they have a vision for that world, which will be Jerusalem at its center, spewing out their poison and hatred for the world and to subjugate the entire world under that type of rule. Again, for billions of people, this is a point of focus, of aspiration, and it also leads to one of the great mysteries surrounding one of the most significant artifacts as it relates to Jerusalem, which that story is just a few steps away from where we are right now.
All right, slippery down here. What was this?
So we are standing in a 2,500-year-old water cistern. And yet there's something very strange about this cistern. Because the way a cistern works, you can look over here, all of this is plaster. This is what would keep the water from seeping out into the limestone. If you look at this wall over here, all of a sudden you see it's different. It's not sealed anymore. It's no longer going to hold water. And so the question is, why would someone who had gone to such trouble to make an enormous cistern like this ruin it by breaking open one of the sides and putting an artificial wall over here? Whatever tunnels or passageways may have been carved out thousands of years ago beneath the Temple Mount, it could be that this wall is all that's standing between us and those passageways. And it leads to one of the great mysteries of Jerusalem, of the Bible, of archaeology, which is what happened to the Ark of the Covenant.
Do you see a discrepancy in this resistance to allowing such excavation to take place while also trying to maintain these people as their own?
They don't want archaeology to happen here because they know that the more we dig in a place like the city of David, the more we're going to find not a testament to Islamic heritage, because very little of that is found in the city of David, but of biblical heritage, which undermines their story. The city of David is what I call an inconvenient truth. It ruins the story that they are trying to tell. And whether it's what's behind this wall, what's still left to be unearthed in the city of David, it's exciting to see what's going to come next.
Wow, what an incredible journey through the city of David. This land is truly so rich with history and evidence of what God has done here through the ages. Clearly, much has been found pointing to the Jewish heritage in this amazing land. But there's still so much road to travel as we go forth. And I look forward to the day where Israel is once again restored to its temple.